Hello, everyone. I'd like to say a few things about this particular article. Uh, Texas governor designates Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations. Now, just off the title alone, I can talk until you're crazy, but there's it's a devastating commentary on um, uh, what type of a society and political climate we live in, not just domestically but globally. Um, Look at this. Mexican cartels are officially terrorist organizations in Texas, according to a designation applied by Texas Governor Greg Abbott in a September 21st executive order. Fentanyl is a clandestine killer, and Texans are victimized by Mexican cartels that produce and import it. So, cartels are terrorists. I can just stop right here. And it's it's time that we started treating them that way. This is, as you can see, I mean, it's a quote by Governor Abbott. So it continues as such. Abbott said during a press conference in Midland, Texas. He specifically named this Sinaloa and the Jalisco New Generation cartels as terrorist organizations, but added, quote, any similarly situated Mexican drug cartels who may be identified in subsequent proclamations, end quote. So far, it's nothing but dripping with logic. This article, let's see. The two he named are the primary sources of fentanyl drug trafficking in the United States, according to the Drug Enforcement Administration. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is often pressed into counterfeit pills and sold as Adderall, Percocet, or other common prescription pills. I mean, painkillers and I don't even want to go into with Adderall and high school, college students, and just this paragraph alone has you can extract a couple of books out of this. Unfortunately, quote, unfortunately, most who die from fentanyl didn't even know that they were taking it. They were poisoned unwittingly by a counterfeit pill that appeared to be some type of real medication, end quote, Abbott said. He said the new terrorist designation will target the cartels, quote, for enhanced apprehension, prosecution, and disruption while heightening awareness of their deadly activities for our citizens and the international community. End quote. He has directed the Texas Department of Public Safety, DPS, to go after Texas-based gangs that work with the cartels in their drug and human smuggling operations. Brilliant. Brilliant. DPS is also to increase its interdictions on contraband going south across the border into Mexico, most often money and firearms, Abbott said. Representative Chip Roy, a Republican from Texas, applauded Abbott's move, saying Congress should follow suit. The fact that this needs to be said is beyond disgusting. Quote, Americans and migrants are suffering and dying at the hands of violent drug cartels in Mexico. Cartels are terrorist organizations and the U.S. government should treat them as such. There are no more valid excuses for allowing them to commit further atrocities, he said. End quote. In the past two congressional legislative sessions, Roy has introduced a bill that seeks to designate two cartels as terrorist organizations. The bill directs the uh, the State Department to designate the Reynosa slash Los Metros faction of the Gulf Cartel and the Cartel del Noreste faction of Los Zetas as foreign terrorist organizations. It also requires the State Department to produce a report on those cartels, as well as any others that meet the criteria. The bill has the support of 46 co-sponsors, all Republican. Let me repeat that. The bill has the support of 46 co-sponsors, all Republicans. The State Department currently lists 68 entities as foreign terrorist organizations, with the oldest designation given in 1997 to Sri Lanka's Shining Path, and one of the newest being for Colombia's Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia People's Army on December 1st, 2021. The State Department says terrorist designations, quote, play a critical role in our fight against terrorism and are an effective means of curtailing support for terrorist activities and pressuring groups to get out of the terrorism business, end quote. Apologies for the noises. I have a series of notifications coming active. In response to a request for comment on Abbott's action, or if it is considering similar actions against Mexican cartels, a State Department spokesperson told Epoch Times via email, quote, we don't discuss deliberations or potential deliberations regarding our designations process, end quote. See, I live in Northern Virginia. Worked in D.C. for quite a long time. So I am a product of this, just like everybody else. I'm a product of their environment. Well, I'm a product of this metropolitan area. And not today. I'm not going to go into a tangent. There's so much is said right in this quote alone. None you would like, but yeah. Along with his executive order, Abbott sent a letter to President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris requesting they classify Mexican drug cartels operating in Texas as organizations. As terrorist organizations. Here we are. Just in case you want to see the letter. I mean, you can, pause the video as I am scrolling and read it, or I'm sure if you Google this, you can you can find it. But yeah, here's the letter. I'm so fuming over this. Quote, the cartel's destruction reaches far beyond our state line, Abbott wrote. Quote, cartel assets could be frozen, weakening the financial support of trafficking activities. In addition, federal investigators and prosecutors could aggressively pursue the enhanced criminal sentences that apply to drug traffickers who fund foreign terrorist organizations, end quote. The White House didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. No kidding. Um, Abbott said that during the next state legislative session, he plans to work on reclassifying fentanyl overdoses as fentanyl poisonings and elevating the penalty for fentanyl dealing to murder if someone dies. He said more teenagers are selling candy colored pills at school that are killing children. The truth of the matter is, the quote, the truth of the matter is cartels could care less whether or not people or the drugs they are trafficking kill people with, he said. Quote, this is extraordinarily dangerous and could be a weapon of mass destruction imposed by Mexican drug cartels, end quote. Well, merciful Christ in his heaven. DPRK and the communist China, both of them have drug programs for this very purpose to begin with. Lord, I have so much to say, but God knows how long this video has been so far. And this is what they are. Look at that. I mean, imagine this. Imagine this. Look, it's. Let's look at the clock. It's 3 minutes till Friday. 11:57 p.m. It's September 22nd. 8 more days, or another week, let's say, until October. Halloween is around the corner. There's nothing ridiculous about expecting to see stuff like this out in the open, not just in schools, just being passed around by kids. I love it when they say the children, and then stuff like this only gets partisan support. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue didn't comment right away. Yeah. Goliad County Sheriff Roy Boyd, who monitors 16 cartel sites in his Texas county, said Abbott's designation, quote, highlights the dire situation that we're in and the seriousness of the organizations that we're up against, quote, end quote. He said although he doesn't think it will directly impact his criminal investigations or the prosecutorial side of the criminal justice system at the local level, it will have an impact at sentencing. Quote, the fact that he's declaring them terrorists will be a beneficial yeah, I'm sort of reading before I read it out loud, so to speak. So sometimes I just stumble over myself. Quote, the fact that he is declaring them terrorists will be beneficial when it comes time for sentencing, because that designation is something that holds a lot of weight with your average citizen juror. It brings them to the understanding of the totality of what's going on with these organizations as they operate within the state of Texas, end quote, Boyd told the Epoch Times. I mean, rest you can, read, but what can be said? Now, there's an opposition. Believe it or not, there's an opposition to this. Kinney County was the first Texas county to declare a disaster over the border crisis in April 2021, and again the first to declare an invasion in July. Quote, the impact of this designation is difficult to determine until we see what kind of teeth are actually in it. However, I think it's a necessary step to justify declaring an invasion on the southern border, Smith said. Kinney County is one of more than 30 Texas counties that have formally declared support for and urge Abbott to declare the border crisis an invasion and invoke his constitutional authority to use the National Guard to repel it. During a press conference on September 22nd, today, Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador suggested Abbott's move to designate the cartels was a political one for re-election purposes. Abbott is running for a third term as governor against Democrat nominee Beto O'Rourke. It's not even worth having his name mentioned. That's how insignificant Beto is. But the Mexican President Obrador stated this, suggested it, and it it's not like he opened the window and said this and they're like, okay, and just wrote it down and now we have it in front of us. I mean, no one said anything to him that, hey, this, what you're saying is ridiculous. Because, let me say it again, Mexican President Obrador suggested Abbott's move to designate the cartels was a political one for re-election purposes. Yes, Mr. Mexican President. Yes, among many things, it was also a political one. Because you see, if you have a constituents and you get yourself elected by earning the trust of these constituents, and if you want to get re-elected, you will continue to do what you have been doing, which is act in the best way that, I mean, go after the best policies that serve your constituents. So yes, it is a political one. Unfortunately, it's a type of political one that people have forgotten about. It's a pro-constituents political move. Yes, it is. It is a political one. And it's not like, I mean, no disrespect intended, as if, please correct me if I'm wrong, Governor Abbott is in a wheelchair. I mean, I am disabled myself also. I'm not in a wheelchair, but, you know, not, what I mean is I don't mean any disrespect, but the man is, what do you want him to do? Do you want him to be corrupted? In a sea of he is, Governor Abbott is a bubble of purity in this gigantic corrupt artery that is the political climate. And this bubble is just passing through, and he's like, wow, he's doing it to get reelected. Yeah. American kids, American families, American citizens, and immigrants that come over legally are all in the risk of being safe from a fentanyl-induced death, or any death that is a trickling effect of the cartels. And yes, Governor Abbott is doing this to get reelected. And like James Woods said, call me a patriot, but I approve, despite the fact that I'm a Virginian. What is this statement supposed to say? Is someone sitting in Texas reading this supposed to think, he's he's going after fentanyl. He's going after securing the border. He's going after new designations and all this. But you know what? He's doing it to get reelected. So he is not doing it out of kindness of his heart, as if that's what it's supposed to be. No, it's part of your job description to look after people who have entrusted their representation to you. I mean, last time I checked, the license plates of Texas didn't say taxation without representation at the top and the bottom of it. It was one of the key issues that we fought for. Our forefathers fought for our independence. You know, being taxed by Great Britain, yet not being able to have any sort of representation. Now our capital does the very thing that we want, which was the fact that one of the reasons we went to war for, to its own residents. If you live in D.C., yeah. It baffles me. It baffles me. Quote, it remains to be seen if he is entitled to make such a declaration or if it's related to the federal government. But there will be elections in November, and they always use immigration with electoral purposes. And that's why they make these policies. So you see, Mr. President Obrador, if these policies were made and enforced and continued to be enforced, the problem would get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But just like the elections of the executive branch, talking about, you know, the presidential elections, one party comes in, puts on a bunch of laws. On the next cycle or a couple of cycles, the other team comes in, reverses all the policies. So we gotta open, close, or on, off switch on policies that should not be matter of discussion, in the sense that they serve the American public, native born or naturalized. Just like the first quote, I don't see what his point is, other than he's not even trying to put a negative spin on it, because the closest thing to a spin here is they always use immigration with electoral purposes. No, not really. We use immigration all the time because it's just like the discussion on racism. It is a wound / problem / issue, whatever term you want to use, that it's a problem that is being kept alive as if it's unsolvable. No, it's solvable. You solve the problem, time needs to pass, some time passes, another group comes in and changes it. So you have to come back and just redo it, so that somebody else comes and undoes it. It's just, we're bleeding time away. Unbelievable. If the man wants to be reelected, he should consider that there are many Mexicans, many Hispanics in Texas and in in all the U.S., and it's not accepted when migrants are mistreated in any state of the American nation. Interesting opinion to have, Mr. Mexican President Obrador, considering that the reason those people are in this country is because you failed them. Where? Go ahead, deny it. I want you to deny it. I want you to say that the federal government of Mexico is so capable to uphold its constitutional guarantees, withhold the due process of law, establish and maintain safety and security of people and their possessions to a point where people are leaving the country that they have patriotic feelings towards and going to another country, regardless what it is, US or any other, because they're doing it to spite you. It has nothing to do with the with it has nothing to do with Mexico and how it's run. It has nothing to do with that. Right? Each person that leaves Mexico, each Mexican that leaves Mexico, or a native citizen of any other country that comes to the United States through Mexico, their respective governments have failed them in one or multiple avenues when it comes to the basic existence of citizenship guarantees. They're not safe. And if they are safe, they can't make enough. Let's say they are making enough, but they're not safe. Let's say they make enough and they are safe. There's no longevity. There's always some sort of issue. Someone, unless you are like 17 and you want to go backpacking from Basel to Oslo, you're not going to take your wife and children and uproot yourself from where you're born and raised in and move elsewhere. It's not like going from one city to another, moving from one city to another yet within your own country, or from state to state yet still within the union. Choosing to leave where you were born in and going to live under another flag is a momentous decision. I know. I am an immigrant. A legal one. And then the fact that he finds the audacity to say something like, if a man wants to be reelected, he should consider that there are many Mexicans, many Hispanics in Texas and in all the U.S., and it's not accepted when migrants are mistreated. Mistreated how? Mistreated by being saved from fentanyl deaths or any other? It's mistreated if a Mexican is safer in the United States than in Mexico. A naturalized Mexican citizen who is an American now shouldn't be safe, right? Because those people, they bankroll the Mexican government, not because they're sending money to the Mexican government. No, I mean, they have friends, family, and the ones that couldn't or wouldn't leave, they're sending money over there. And, Mexican pesos versus the US dollar. There are so many governments around the world that have this false, misunderstood influx of cash that are coming into their countries due to, it's off the U.S. taxpayers. Mostly, I'm talking about the immigrants or naturalized citizens uh, that are American citizens now that have family elsewhere, and that's an entirely separate video. But sorry, I'm going off on this tangent, but it's just the sheer hypocrisy, and this is a president. Obrador has been criticized for allowing the cartels to transform Mexico into a narco state with his hugs and not the bullets approach. Yeah, because if he goes bullets, not hugs, he's the first to receive the bullet from the cartels. The Texas policy, the Texas Public Policy Foundation said in a September 22 press release that the cooperation between Mexico and the U.S. governments to combat cartel activity has, quote, neared rock bottom. Obrador, who has paid public respects to cartel kingpin family and in his official capacity, end quote. A senior reporter, Charlotte Cuthbertson. Obrador has paid public respects to cartel kingpin family in his official capacity. Mr. President, smell of blood carries very far. It's one of the few things that you can actually smell through history. The stench of World War One, World War Two, Vietnam, and those aren't even gone. Let alone the conflicts that are more recent. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a major global conflict for, those sort of scents to take hold in history. Abortion, murders, gangs, stuff like this. Smell of blood carries very far. And there will be time that anyone and everyone involved in this will have to pay for their actions. Thank you for your time. And forgotten country.